weeks to go, the race to get the campaigns rolling. Stalking the giant bluefin, a day in the water with some ocean-going big game hunters. And diet and cancer. The connection is stronger than you think. Good evening, I'm Norma Lee McLeod, and this is Compass for Monday, October the 3rd. The election campaign is off and running. The date is set for 7 weeks from today, Monday, November the 21st. And the first poll of the campaign has brought good news for the Conservatives. The poll shows the Conservatives leading the pack with 43% of those surveyed. The Liberals are second at 33%, and the NDP trails at 22%. The other good news for the Tories was the response to the question of leadership. When asked who would make the best Prime Minister, 34% favored Brian Mulroney. Ed Broadbent is close behind at 33%, and a mere 12% favor John Turner. It's the first time Mulroney has been first choice in 3 years. Here on the island, meanwhile, the first public campaign events are still a few days away. But behind the scenes, there's frantic activity. Kathy Large reports.
The countdown is on for party workers. They'll be racing against the calendar to get everything done in time for Election Day.
So that's everything, you know, it's pretty well in place, you know.
But good organization must be paired with popularity, and the Tories clearly have the jump on the Liberals in public opinion. Today's Gallup poll shows the Tories ahead in every province except Ontario, and the Tories' provincial coordinator is predicting that will hold until Election Day.
Well, our national polls show us, Kathy, to be in the lead in Atlantic Canada at the present time. I'm not sure and not privy to the precise information, but I'm led to believe that they are somewhat similar to the recent Angus Reid poll. I have great respect for the Liberals in fighting campaigns, and I fought a number against them, some of which we won and some of which they won. And they are very ardent campaigners, and we treat them with the utmost respect, and that means that our people work hard to beat them in the end.
The Liberals, meanwhile, are pointing to a poll done early last month by the Globe and Mail.
But in Atlantic Canada, the last poll showed that the Liberal support was at 48%. And when you translate that into seats, of the 32 seats in Atlantic Canada, we could win 27.
This is the material.
Campbell believes the campaign will be fought on the free trade issue. His campaign materials, fresh from a meeting in Ottawa on Sunday, show that the Liberals will be putting most of their effort in convincing Canadians that the deal should be scrapped.
Good morning, Conservative Headquarters.
Meanwhile, there is much behind-the-scenes work to do before the campaign takes on a high public profile. A new voters list will be drawn up, meetings with special interest groups who want to press their issues home, and candidates must be chosen by all parties in Egmont. Prince Edward Island's Cabinet Minister Tom McMillan has already canvassed all the new areas in his riding, with only the NDP to worry about.
McMillan's free reign won't last long, however. He'll find out who his Liberal opponent will be tomorrow night. Kathy Large, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Some islanders will notice a big change in this election. They've been moved to a new riding. The island still has the same 4 constituencies it's always had, but some of the boundaries have been changed. Marlene Stanton reports.
The changes in boundaries mean that about 3,700 voters now live and cast their ballots in what used to be the riding next door. In western PEI, the boundary between Egmont and Malpeque changes. The communities of Wilmot, Sherbrooke, and Fleming Park, which is the residential area of the Summerside Air Base, are now in Egmont riding. The Electoral Boundaries Commission says the interest of those voters is closer to the town of Summerside and Egmont than to Malpeque. Redistribution of voters could help the Conservatives here. In the last election, the Liberal candidate, George Henderson, won by a majority of fewer than 1,000 votes. He's not running this time, but if voters follow the same pattern, the areas added to Egmont will increase the Conservative votes, and the Liberal majority would be cut. In Malpeque, Conservative Mel Gass enjoyed a huge majority of almost 4,500. He's not running again either. But if the electors vote as before, a net loss of Conservative voters to Egmont won't make much of a dent in the PC majority in Malpeque. The boundary between Hillsborough riding and Cardigan will also change. Southport and Bunbury, Keppoch and Kinloch, just across the bridge from Charlottetown, used to be part of Cardigan. They'll now join Greater Charlottetown as part of Hillsborough riding. It means MP Tom McMillan now lives in the district he represents. And the Cardigan MP, Pat Binns, could lose about 400 Conservative votes. Each PEI riding now has about 20,000 voters. With the same number of seats in Parliament, PEI is still much more strongly represented by population than most other areas of the country. The average riding in Canada has 3 times as many people in it as any PEI riding. Marlene Stanton, CBC News, Charlottetown.
The legislation that establishes pay equity in the provincial civil service is now in effect. It was passed in the last session of the legislature, and the date set for implementing it was October the 1st. The idea behind pay equity is equal pay for work of equal value, and the first task is to evaluate the jobs so that we'll be able to tell which ones are equivalent and which ones are not. Someone who will be deeply involved in that process is Faye Martin-Burt, Pay Equity Commissioner for the provincial government. Can you tell me what factors you will be considering when you go to evaluate jobs?
The factors that will be considered in the course of job evaluation are fairly clearly outlined in the legislation that requires the parties to agree upon a job evaluation scheme that, number one, does not demonstrate bias towards gender, i.e. towards male and female jobs, and number two, has us consider the jobs within 4 broad factor groupings: skill, responsibility, effort, and working conditions. And within those 4 broad areas, the parties can agree upon sub-factors that will be appropriate to their establishment.
How long will it be before pay equity shows up on the paychecks?
The pay equity process, because of its complexity, although it's complex, it is very methodical and has to be very comprehensive, will take up to 2 years before employees will actually see dollars in their paycheck. This permits us to do an exhaustive evaluation of the jobs that have been identified as being appropriate for evaluation.
Will everybody come on stream at the same time, or will it be a gradual process?
The civil service and the employee representatives in the appropriate bargaining units will commence initially. 12 months later, the employers in the broader public sector will commence their process.
The minimum wage has gone up. As of October 1st, it jumped a quarter to $4.25 an hour. For those under 18, it went to $3.75. It's still not very much, though. $4.25 an hour works out to $170 a week, or a little over $9,000 a year. There's going to be an inquest into the car accident that fatally injured 19-year-old Keith Darash of Forest View. He had stepped out of his car to check a flat tire, and he was hit when his car was rammed by another one. An RCMP cruiser had pulled up on the other side of the road. It happened last weekend. The date for the inquest has not been set, but an RCMP spokesman says it will probably be in November. A dramatic statistic today about diet and cancer. The Canadian Cancer Society said poor eating habits are potentially even more dangerous than smoking. Wylene Lafoy reports.
The scenario is all too common. In the middle of a busy day, our stomach grumbles, and in a rush, we opt for a quick burger and fries. Such poor diet habits at home and on the run are responsible for 35% of all cancers. That's 5% more than smoking. The Canadian Cancer Society wants people to be aware of the link between diet and cancer and to make wise choices when we sit down to eat.
We can reduce our risks of cancer by what we eat. Our theme is you can have a hand in it, meaning we are in control of our hand and what we put in our own mouths.
Improving your diet is really quite simple. You can get vitamins and fiber in fruits and vegetables. 4 or 5 servings a day are recommended. Fiber also comes from whole grain breads and cereals. Also, overweight people are at greater risk of developing cancer, so it helps to maintain your ideal body weight. Fat is something we eat way too much of. We should cut down on greasy foods and try baking or broiling meats rather than frying or deep frying. Also, low-fat dairy products are preferred. Alcohol should be consumed in moderation, no more than 1 or 2 drinks a day if you must. And smoked, cured, or pickled foods should be avoided or eaten in very small quantities. They've been linked with stomach cancer. Dietitians say these are changes that everyone can make without a lot of effort.
For example, you can go with, if you're in a restaurant, you can very easily go with a baked potato now. It's being offered in most places. You can go with salads. There are salad bars even at McDonald's and places of that sort now, so that the choices are becoming much more available for people. You can eat a little less fried foods. You don't have to have French fries and fried onions. And we're not saying you shouldn't have them at all. You can cut down on, instead of having them 4 times a week, be aware that I really shouldn't be having this on a regular basis. I have to be working at improving my diet and having maybe something as an alternate.
So all it takes are a few minor changes to your diet, and you can help reduce your risk of getting cancer. What's more, healthy eating can benefit your heart, and chances are you'll look and feel better as well. Wileen Lafoy for CBC News, Charlottetown.
Well, this is October, and that means the Halloween jack-o'-lantern season will soon be underway. And this weekend, pumpkin sleuths were busy at Vesey Seeds in York holding a competition for the biggest and best in the patch. The winner was this 400-pound, 8-ounce monster grown by Lloyd and Jamie Vesey. It'll probably make a great jack-o'-lantern, but we have to confess that it's not really a pumpkin. It's a squash. Coming up, Space Shuttle Discovery lands on Earth. But first, Kevin, the weather was great over the weekend, not so great today.
Not so great for pumpkin judging today normally, but the sky should clear out overnight partially. Looking for sunshine early tomorrow morning and clouds. Not a very good looking week. I'll have more details upcoming in the show.
This is Jeff Hussey. Join us in search of a monster on a tuna charter out of North Lake. That's later on Compass.
The Space Shuttle Discovery touched down at Edwards Air Force Base in California just after 1:30 our time this afternoon. It brought to a successful end the first manned American space mission since the Challenger explosion 2.5 years ago. And it marked the beginning of America's return to space. Ann McDermott reports.
Roger, wheel stop Discovery. Welcome back. A great ending to the new beginning.
Thanks a lot.
A new beginning. That's what Discovery's mission was all about. Yes, it did launch a communications satellite, and some experiments were performed on board. But most importantly, Discovery got America back in space after being grounded for 32 months in the wake of the Challenger tragedy.
I was crying. It was beautiful. I've never seen anything like that. And when it came through the sky, and we just saw it, it was breathtaking. Just gorgeous.
I couldn't believe it. I was holding my son, and at first we didn't realize that that's actually what we saw up there. We didn't think we'd be able to see with our naked eyes that soon. And then when we heard the sonic booms, there was just a chill that went down our throats.
I am just delighted with the way that the team has pulled together.
Vice President George Bush was on hand to welcome the astronauts home. NASA officials were quick to point out he was acting in the role of vice president, not candidate. His presence did require some last-minute rearrangements. He was given the viewing spot for the landing that was initially reserved for crew members' families, but the families were moved to what NASA said was a better spot. But here, none of that seemed to matter to the 425,000 people. They were too busy celebrating Discovery's success. Ann McDermott, CNN, Edwards Air Force Base, California.
One of the hostages being held in Lebanon has been set free. Notaliswar Singh is a college professor of Indian origin. He was kidnapped in January of 1987 and he was released today in West Beirut. The Supreme Court of Canada is hearing another landmark case on abortion. The case has been brought forward by Joe Borowski, a leading anti-abortion advocate. Neil MacDonald reports.
Borowski began his long battle 10 years ago, trying to strike down parts of the criminal code section on abortion. But the Supreme Court struck down the whole section in January. That forced Borowski to switch tactics. He now wants the Supreme Court to decide whether a fetus has the right to life, as guaranteed by the Constitution. This morning, Borowski said he was optimistic.
I can't imagine the courts not
conferring the status of humanity to the unborn. And if that is done, then I think the rest will follow naturally.
But the optimism of the anti-abortion crusader and the people who turned out to support him faded inside the courtroom. The judges cut off his lawyer and wondered out loud what they were doing hearing a challenge to a law that doesn't exist anymore. Madam Justice Claire Heureux-Dubé came right to the point when Borowski's lawyer said the unborn have no protection. The easy answer to that, said Heureux-Dubé, is that it's up to the state to decide. There would be protection if they decided to act. The government has been trying to stall the Borowski hearing without asking that it be dismissed. Then, after Parliament's inconclusive vote on abortion last July, Prime Minister Mulroney said any new legislation would have to wait until after the Borowski decision. Today, Judge Antonio Lamer taunted the federal government's lawyer, virtually daring him to ask the court to quash Borowski's motion. The lawyer refused. The judges may yet decide they have no jurisdiction at all in this matter. They've reserved a decision on that, and in the meantime, they're allowing the appeal to proceed. So the arguments have switched from highly legal points to the morality of the issue, whether a fetus is a human being with human rights. Neil MacDonald, CBC News, Ottawa.
On the national election campaign today, Prime Minister Brian Mulroney was in Ontario, where he took his free trade message to the shop floor of a small factory in Georgetown near Toronto. Wendy Mesley reports.
Brian Mulroney couldn't have hoped for a better kickoff. The latest poll shows that if an election were to be held now, the Conservative leader would win another majority, 186 seats. It also says his personal popularity has soared. For the first time in almost 3 years, Mulroney is the most popular of the three-party leaders. Mulroney's first campaign stop outside of Ottawa was in southwestern Ontario. Today's poll shows why. The only region where the Tories are still trailing the Liberals is in Ontario. Their support seems strong in Quebec and in the West, but to win a majority, Mulroney must also win a good chunk of Ontario's 99 seats. Mulroney came first to Georgetown in the riding of Halton Peel. Liberal strategists say if the Tories win this one, they'll be unstoppable. Many voters here are concerned about the free trade deal with the United States. Mulroney came to this plastics plant to try and calm those fears. With most of their goods going for export, most of the workers here seem to like the deal.
The only person who is public on record and put his reputation on the line is our Prime Minister, who has provided the leadership for all of us to make sure there is a future, not just for us, for our kids.
Mulroney says his trade deal may not be perfect, but
the option is tearing it up. And for those who say they're going to tear it up, I ask you to ask them what they're going to do for you after they've torn it up.
This evening, Mulroney will be near London before flying west. He'll stop in every western province before the week is out. Wendy Mesley, CBC News, Georgetown, Ontario.
And for a look at John Turner's day on the campaign trail, we go to Keith Bogue in Ottawa.
As usual, John Turner had nothing to say about today's Gallup poll.
I never have any reaction to any poll.
This morning, he appeared in good spirits as he faced an auditorium of Ottawa high school students for a question and answer session.
Do you feel that hospitals deserve more funding in order to maintain a higher quality of care?
We have the finest public health care system in the world.
Turner likes this format. It gives him an opportunity to show his grip on the issues people want to talk about. Perhaps more importantly, he can also show that he has become a smoother politician than he was in 1984.
What do you plan to do about the pollution in the Great Lakes?
This is a mutual problem. We're destroying our atmosphere, we're destroying our lakes, we're destroying our forests. Let's, as good neighbors, do what we did with our water. Let's start cleaning it up. Okay.
The Liberals are determined to prove from the outset that they are a much better team than the one that campaigned so poorly in the last election. They feel they've already made a strong start, that they presented an image of readiness and organization. At this local riding office this morning, everything was made to look action-ready, as though the election were tomorrow, not 7 weeks away. On the walls, lists of polling captains who will work election day, maps of the block-by-block round campaign. In fact, though, in almost a third of ridings, the Liberals don't even have a candidate nominated yet. The Liberals also still have problems with policy and strategy. Some Turner aides insist, for instance, the leader will lay out the party's policy on abortion before Election Day. But Turner says no, that will have to wait until he becomes Prime Minister.
I've been more precise than the Prime Minister, and when I have that role, as leader of our country, the Canadian people will know where I stand because I'll present a project.
In fairness, abortion is perhaps the most difficult and divisive issue any political party has to deal with these days. A better test of how thorough the Liberals organization is will likely come tomorrow in Toronto. There, Turner will be talking about housing. And for the first time, he'll give a detailed explanation of how one of his party's most important platform policies will work. Keith Boak, CBC News, Ottawa.
More troubles for Ben Johnson. In the midst of all the controversy about steroids at the Olympics comes a more mundane problem, speeding. This morning, Johnson and his sister left home in separate cars, Johnson in his Ferrari, his sister in the Mazda. They were followed onto a highway by a squad of reporters. Johnson started to speed up to get away from them when he was pulled over by a police officer. Then Johnson and his sister drove to a small electronics shop where he left the Ferrari. He got into the Mazda with his sister. A French TV crew followed. Johnson was fed up. He got out of the car and he grabbed the cameraman. And Ben Johnson's having a rough ride, Scott, but I guess we're going to hear from him publicly tomorrow.
Well, I think I'd be at the end of my straw if I were, in his situation. At this point, it's been over a week now. So.
A lot of pressure.
Yes, indeed. And coming up in sports, the quickest four-legged runners in the Maritimes were on hand Saturday at the CDP. I'll have that and more after this break.
Then Times with David Wheel is an award-winning series on Island Morning. Every Tuesday at 7:50, local historian David Wheel joins me for an affectionate look back at the early 1900s in this province. It's an entertaining and informative review of the social life which shaped the way many islanders live today. Join us on Tuesday mornings at 7:50 for Then Times on CBC Radio, FM 96.
The Credit Union, the first and only financial institution owned by the people it serves. First with the payment card, first with daily interest accounts, always a major innovator. We are continually exploring ideas today to serve you even better tomorrow. Our future looks bright and more secure than ever. Why? Because we work with the smartest owner in the business, you.
The credit union belongs to you and me.
Do you live in Grecoville? If you do, you can get free delivery from Greco Pizza within 30 minutes, or your pizza is on the house. So if for some reason your Greco Pizza is late, your pizza is free. Delicious, hot, juicy Greco Pizza delivered to your door within 30 minutes. Now then, do you live in Grecoville?
Do you live in Grecoville? There is pizza on time. Or pizza on us.
Good evening. The richest race ever held at the Charlottetown Driving Park was run on Saturday afternoon with perfect conditions as predicted, and the fastest 3-year-old colts in the region.
A big crowd was there to see the Rothman Sire Stakes final. 8 horses and drivers after the championship and a share of the $33,200 purse.
Here they come.
Island Invader, with Joe Smallwood driving, held the lead for most of the race, but Kilkerran Fury and Emmons McKay turned it on, as Boomer calls them, just past the half.
The half in a minute, 1/5. Island Invader by 3 parts of a length. Kilkerran Fury sits on the outside. Second, Aries Kyle racing third. Down the back stretch they go by the 3/4. Fury is on the outside and going to the top. It's Kilkerran Fury pacing to the front now by 2. Island Invader racing second. Aries Kyle Bullet Sea Treasure back to the top. Kilkerran Fury by 4 looks for more and gets it. Has it by 5. 1:29 and 1 by the 3/4. Kilkerran Fury by 6. now 7. Karen Fury's coming through the stretch, right down to the wire. Karen Fury and Emmons McKay win the Roughman State Final. Second is Island Invader. Aries Kyle will be 3.
Karen Fury won it, going away in 1:59.1. This impressive 3-year-old has now won over $100,000 in his first 2 years on the track. Owner Wathan Piers of Pugwash says he'll keep the colt in the Maritimes and could run him in next year's Gold Cup and Saucer. That's something to look forward to. The Major League Baseball playoffs begin this week, also something to look forward to. Tomorrow night, the Los Angeles Dodgers host the New York Mets in Game 1 of the National League Championship Series. The American League Series opens Wednesday in Boston between the Red Sox and the Oakland A's. Both series are the best of 7. With the end of the baseball season usually comes the firing and hiring of managers whose teams aren't involved in postseason play. The Philadelphia Phillies are expected to name St. Louis coach Nick Leyva as their new manager today. Managerial changes are also expected in New York and Seattle. There's only one unbeaten team remaining in the National Football League through 5 weeks. Don Martin has a look at some of yesterday's games, starting with Chicago and the Buffalo Bills.
The Bears got all they would need in the first half. Jim McMahon to Emery Moorhead for a 4-yard touchdown to make it 7-0 Chicago. But the play that kills the Bills comes just before halftime. The Bears with the reverse to Dennis Gentry. McMahon with a block on Cornelius Bennett. And Gentry is gone, and so is Buffalo's undefeated season. Both teams now 4-1 as Chicago wins it 24-3. The only unbeaten team left is Cincinnati as Boomer Esiason picks apart the L.A. Raider defense for 332 yards and 3 touchdowns, at one point completing 10 in a row. The Bengals win at 45-21 to go 5-0 after winning just 4 games in all of last season. At New England, Doug Flutie comes off the bench in the 4th quarter to drive the Patriots to 2 touchdowns, including this one with 23 seconds to play, as New England beats Indianapolis 21-17. In Washington, Phil Simms hits Odessa Turner in the end zone in the 3rd quarter, and the Giants hold off a Redskin comeback to win it 24-23. And in Anaheim, Neil Lomax throws for 342 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Cardinals, now in Phoenix, beat the LA Rams for the first time in 12 years. Phoenix in a first-place tie with the Giants at 3-2 after winning 41-27.
Week 5 of the NFL season comes to a close tonight as the Dallas Cowboys play the New Orleans Saints. The National Hockey League regular season opens Thursday. Most teams played their final exhibition games last night, among them the Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames, who squared off in Calgary.
The Flames were leading 2-0 at the 13:35 mark of the first period. Gary Suter and Al McKinnon set up Joey Mullen on this power play. The Flames lead 3-0. But the Oilers start their attack within the final minute of the first period. Rookies Martin Jelena and Jimmy Carson, both part of the Gretzky trade, combined to set up Yari Curry. It's 3-1 after 1. And it's downhill from there. Late in the second period, a major scrum between the two teams. The Battle of Alberta is alive and well. Early in the third, the Flames lead 3-2, but the Oilers quickly get even. Kelly Buchberger scores at the 2-minute mark. It's 3 all time. The Oilers grab the lead on a power play. Veterans Charlie Huddy and Mark Messier set up Yari Curry. It's 4-3 Edmonton. Then the Oilers get some insurance. At 17:23 of the third, Glenn Anderson scores on the power play to make it 5-3 Oilers. And that's how the game ended.
NHL teams will be able to fill out their rosters today with the annual waiver draft of unprotected players. Some of the players up for grabs are former 50-goal man Dennis Marouk and Moncton native Charlie Bourgeois. Usually, though, not many players are taken during the waiver draft. And the first hockey game of the season locally will be played tonight at the Charlottetown Forum between the Moncton Hawks and the Cape Breton Oilers of the American Hockey League. Opening face-off is scheduled for 7 o'clock, and I'm told there's still tickets left. That's sports.
And I thought sports fans wouldn't have anything to do after the Olympics
This
ended.
is the big triple season, baseball, hockey, and football.
Oh, boy. Okay, Kevin, what's up in the weather tonight? Maybe people will go outside.
Well, I don't know about outside tonight, but I'm sure everyone was out on the weekend, a beautiful weekend that it was. Here we see the cold front that passed through Prince Edward Island, much of the Maritimes, by mid-morning today, and it brought a decrease in temperatures as we see cloud remaining across Prince Edward Island, a temperature of 11 at East Baltic, and here in Charlottetown, 12-degree readings at Summerside, and at Tignish. The sun was out behind the system where the wind was not coming off the water in New Brunswick, and they had sunshine at Edmundston at 11, 13 in Chatham, 14 sunny degrees in Fredericton. The sun was out with a mixture of cloud in Moncton at 13, and St. John had sun and cloud at 15 degrees. The lower part of Nova Scotia, much the same conditions. 15 in Yarmouth, it was 14 in Greenwood. Well, the cold front had not yet passed through Halifax. It was 20 degrees there, and they had sunshine and cloud, overcast and still warm in Sydney with the approach of that front at 20 degrees. But up in Grindstone, the front had passed through and they dropped off to a temperature of 11 degrees. Well, we'll take a look at our satellite picture, and there's the present view of North America as we zoom in on the Maritimes from yesterday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We see the cloud associated with that front moving through, and it's almost through. Some low cloud not showing up across the island. That is producing a bit of drizzle here in the Charlottetown area at the present. Well, out west today in Vancouver, late overcast skies with a temperature of 14 degrees. This massive high-pressure system was pumping cold air in front of it, and a little warmer behind it. It was 9 in Edmonton, 11 in Calgary with sunshine, a cool 4 in Regina, also sunshine. It was overcast in Winnipeg with a temperature of 5 degrees. This high-pressure system moving in behind the cold front that will clear skies out overnight here, was giving a few showers to Toronto at 10 and overcast skies at Ottawa at 11. That same temperature at Montreal, 11 degrees with cloudy skies. Well, St. John's was enjoying the weather we had yesterday, 21 sunny degrees in St. John's, Newfoundland, but fog up in Stephenville with a temperature of 15. Well, as we can see, the cold front associated with that low pressure system is making its way through the Maritimes. Behind it, temperatures are a lot cooler, but as it moves out, this will sort of take a reverse trend and come back, allowing this low pressure system to move up along it. And the brief period of sunshine tomorrow, the cloud ahead of the system will move in by afternoon. So with that, let's recap the island forecast. Clearing skies overnight, some lingering clouds with a bit of drizzle, temperature of 7. Tomorrow starting off with sunshine, cloud by afternoon, a temperature of 14 degrees, and those winds cool out of the northwest at 20 kilometers per hour. So sort of unsettled for the remainder of the week normally.
It's not too bad, though, for October.
We'll take it.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. The tourist season is about over now, but in the tiny community of North Lake, this is the time of year when things really get rolling. People come in from all over the world to stalk some of the biggest game the ocean has to offer, the giant bluefin. We have a report from Jeff Hussey.
This is where the day starts, the Seabreeze Motel. At the dawn's early light, all is quiet. Just down the road, the ocean, which yesterday was churned by gale force winds. Inside, quick hands are readying the breakfast for would-be tuna champions.
Well, we came to fish and do nothing but touring.
First up, raring to go, 4 guys from Pennsylvania. The talk is fish, fish, fish.
I noticed that Tony only has 3 poles down there. Unfortunately.
Every year for the past 5 years, Art Huber and the boys head up in a motorhome, hoping for an experience they can find nowhere else.
Yeah, we were out 20 minutes and hooked up. I thought there was nothing to this.
Oh, so you have caught a tuna?
Yeah. Well, we had him hooked on. We had him on for about an hour and a half, and he spit the hook. Bad break. A mighty fish. Mighty. I was really surprised. When I seen him tow the boat backwards, I thought that was the end.
I'm sure ready for a fish, that's for sure.
The restaurant is filling up now. There's concern that even though the commercial tunamen are having a bumper year, some say over 70 tuna landed, that the giant fish still haven't moved along the Gulf as far as North Lake. There's another worry, too, the weather.
No problems at the end of the run either, is there?
Shirley Bennett, den mother and charter organizer, checks it out.
Well, so I can tell the guys it'll be around 10-ish, 10:30.
It's a go.
You are tied together with this thin little line, and you feel its life fighting with you.
Jo Mader, a New York City disc jockey, is here for the first time. She, according to a publicity blurb, has a late-night voice that has inspired anonymous listeners to send her naughty lingerie. On this chilly day, she is probably inspired to wear long johns.
Fishing is a metaphor for life, especially my life. I do a lot of commercial work, voiceover work for commercials, and I'm always going out on castings. Well, they don't call them castings for nothing. You know, it's like you're casting. You're going out for the big one. Will I get the part? Will I get the fish? It's the same thing. I got this book, A Fisherman's Bible. I was up to how to land, no, how to play the fish. Setting the hook, dropping the rod tip, pumping, bowing to the fish, working the fish in close, landing the fish, netting and gaffing, after landing a fish.
Usually I do that.
There's so much to know. This is fascinating. It's like a science.
Do you think you could land one of those 1,200-pound fish after reading that little book?
Well, listen, people win the lottery who can't even speak English, right?
Terry Smith and his wife Diana from Honduras. They and their friends, Dr. Jack Conley and his wife Darian, retired early and share a home on a 10-acre island they own in the Caribbean. But their idyllic life is incomplete. The foursome are here because they have to come here.
This is where the big tuna run, so we had to come up here and see for ourselves.
You do fishing down there?
Right.
And you got some big ones?
Yeah, we have marlin down there, wahoo, we have small tuna, we have blackfin and yellowfin tuna.
What's the biggest fish you've ever hooked?
Marlins.
How heavy, how big?
About 300 pounds.
Are you optimistic that perhaps this time you're going to hook into something maybe 3 times that weight?
Well, if we were, we wouldn't be here.
I think the thrill, more than anything, is the size of the fish. See, the fish we catch normally, I'd say the largest one that we've caught to eat is a 50-pound fish. So I think it's the size, the massiveness of the fish more than anything else.
It's 10:05 now. The boat crews are also anxious to get underway. Those 1,000-pound tuna are worth around $10,000 to the skippers. Japanese buyers are just waiting. Ironically, Joe Maida, the lady with the smoky late-night voice, has drawn Midnight Lady. A dark omen, but possibly a good one. The contingent from Honduras has been assigned Best of Luck.
Hey, guys! All right.
Captain Walter Bruce is philosophic about the exercise.
Just take what we get. That's all you can do when you're fishing.
The poles go up port and starboard. There are about 900 yards of 130-pound test on each reel. The line will snap at around 120. The drag on the reel is set very light. This method of fishing the giant tuna may be romantic. Practical it isn't. The daisy chain mackerel goes out to starboard. We're fishing deep to port. 80% of all hooked tuna grab at the surface lure, which simulates a school of mackerel. Terry Smith tries out the fighting chair. They have agreed that each male member will take hourly turns standing by for a strike. The women on board seem satisfied with this arrangement. The time drifts by. There's a swell on the water. We're 8 miles out. The early excitement and keen sense of anticipation has abated somewhat. It's 2 p.m. We're steaming westwards about 9 miles out. There's no sign of any tuna. This group is patient but getting a little restless. 2:30. We're into heavier seas now. There's a nip in the air and a sip on the deck. The beer is out. $3.20, still nothing. Skipper Walter Bruce.
Most of the charters we get are experienced fishermen. They know these fish are hard to get. They know there's not many of them around, these over 1,000-pounders, and they're willing to wait the time to catch them. Basically, I think 99% of your charters are fishermen that want a fish over 1,000 pounds.
Jack Conley, who made his pile in plastic surgery and Texas real estate, has been through this countless times.
No hits yet. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's fishing, particularly when you're fishing for a big game fish. You will either get one or none, and they come and all the action happens just in a matter of seconds.
Are you prepared to keep fishing here for, say, several more days with the same results and still be reasonably happy about it?
Oh, sure. We came this far to fish, and that's what we're going to do here.
Oh, I'm disappointed. I had hoped to catch one, but, since they haven't caught any this season, I'm not surprised. But we thought, coming as far as we've come, we would have brought this area some luck, but maybe tomorrow.
I sense a lot of women have this passion because their husbands have it. Is that the case with you?
I'd say that's basically true. I do enjoy being out in the water, but mainly I'm here because he likes to do it.
Okay. How long are you prepared to stick around to catch a big one?
You mean how many days? Oh, I think 3 is about my limit. His limit for shopping is about 3.
5 o'clock. The group agree to call it quits. They'll sightsee tomorrow and try again the following day. Suddenly,
There was one up before that before we got here.
8 miles to the west, there's been a sighting.
This is the same fish that we were seeing in the center here a while ago.
We steam at full speed to the spot, where we are joined by 8 or 10 other charter boats. The bait goes out again. All eyes are watching for the tuna to break the surface.
Gotta look for these babies.
Then,
There you go. Got him. I got him.
cameraman Mac Pratt is exultant.
About 75 yards. Right there.
And again 4 minutes later. The other boats move in, ever closer. We zigzag back and forth under now darkening skies. White caps are breaking, confusing the spotters. .30. With the going down of the sun, we make for port at speed. None of the boats that set out this day from the tuna capital of the world have hooked a fish. But our party, the Smiths, the Conleys, and the Carmichaels, and true fishermen the world over understand the basic law of the hunt. It's chance. That's why they call it fishing instead of catching. For Compass, I'm Jeff Hussey in North Lake.
A special word of thanks to Captain Walter Bruce for his cooperation and help in preparing that report. And time now for our Monday night look behind the scenes in PEI politics. The topic, of course, is the election, and we're joined by our regular panelists, Ron Kelly, labor critic for the PEI New Democratic Party, Eugene Rossiter, president of the Provincial Conservative Party, and for the Liberals, David Hooley. David, I'd like to start with you. Is the election really at this point not just a race for second place?
Well, I don't think so normally. As I see it, the public opinion is extremely volatile at this point in time. We remember back to the previous election in '84 when John Turner started the election 11 points ahead of the Conservatives, and we know what happened in that election. Things can change very rapidly. We know that only a few months ago the Tories were in 3rd place. Now they're in 1st place. So opinion's very volatile, and I think we're going to see a very hard-fought campaign on a riding-by-riding basis right across the country. And that it's anybody's ball game at this point in time. I don't think we can read too much into the numbers because the voter support is just that volatile, as reflected by the fluctuations that we've seen in the past 6 months.
Ron Kelly, do you concede that the NDP is racing for second place then with one of the 2 other parties?
Hardly. We almost got second place last time. We entered the campaign at 11%. We're miles ahead of that now, and I think if there's going to be any second place fight, it's going to be between my 2 colleagues here. Really what you're seeing over the last 3 or 4 years is that the polls have said that it's a 3-way race, and when we traditionally gain during a campaign, we're going to be in there at the wire, and we're just entering the home stretch now.
Eugene, you had some great news today that must make you think otherwise.
Well, I think that really the first issue in this campaign, or the first thing which this campaign will resolve is or question who's going to be the next leader of the Liberal Party. And the second question is there going to be a new official opposition, such as the NDP? And the third question is this going to be the biggest majority in the history of Canada, or is it going to be the second biggest majority in the history of Canada? I feel that the Conservatives are quite confident that they'll be returned, just a question of numbers.
It's that kind of arrogance that got Brian Mulroney in trouble during the past 4 years, isn't it, Mr. Oster?
I don't think it's arrogance. I think when you look at the public opinion poll today, just as an example, it shows, I think, that the Conservatives, somewhere around 43% of the support. Now, that's a public opinion poll today, and that changes as time goes on. But I think when you look at the confidence that the public have in this government from an economic point of view, the situation which this government's put the country in with respect to low unemployment, low interest rates, strong dollar, good balance of trade, these sorts of things which people are going to carry to the ballot box. That's what's going to happen.
Well, you know, it's sort of typical of the Tories that they wait to the very first minute that they've nosed ahead, and then they say, okay, let's begin the race. And that's what we're seeing here.
Well, the race was only called yesterday or the day before.
Okay, we know some of the issues nationally are going to be child care, free trade. On Prince Edward Island, do we have an issue building in the fixed link? Ron?
Well, it's not so much building as it's been there all along. I mean, obviously, for the last year or more, that's been one of the leading issues in island life. And it certainly will, I think, continue that through the campaign. I don't know it'll be the main issue because we're obviously fighting a national campaign here, but it'll be one of them. And, you know, I think it's ironic that, especially in Hillsborough with the Minister of Environment, you know, rejecting or resisting the call for an environmental assessment review process, that he's going to have to deal with that, and we're going to make him deal with it.
Eugene, is the pressure on Tom Renal?
Well, I don't think that the public are people basically who vote on one particular issue. I think they will look at the overall combination of issues which come to the forefront and say, how has this government performed? The only one-issue campaign I can recall in recent memory was the 18-cent election in 1979 when the Liberals were campaigning against an 18-cent increase in the price of a gallon of gas, and they get in and increased it 65, 70, 80 cents a gallon. People don't vote on one issue. There are some people or some of the public have burning particular issues, whether it be abortion or the death penalty or whatever the issue might be, child care or
good government
or fixed link or whatever.
Integrity in government or the lack thereof?
No, I don't think that's a problem with this administration.
David Hooley, will it help the Liberals perhaps in Hillsborough, where if there is any pressure, I suppose it would be on Tom McMillan?
Well, Tom is the federal minister of the environment normally, and I believe that there will be a bit of a local issue. I find myself, and it's not often that Eugene and I agree on very much, but I think that people don't vote on single issues for the most part. They vote on the totality of the situation. But no doubt in the Hillsborough riding, with Tom being the federal minister of environment, there is pressure out there from various groups to have a full environmental impact assessment done on the fixed link. The Minister of the Environment has resisted that. At one point he asked the Prime Minister to relieve him of his duties as Environment Minister because of a perceived conflict. So I think he's got a difficult position there that undoubtedly our candidate will be trying to bring to the attention of the public during the next 6 weeks.
I think normally that on that particular point there's going to be a certain pressure brought to bear in the Premier of the province, who we didn't know what his position was on the fixed link until after the plebiscite was done, and we still don't know what his position is on the environmental issues, other than we're going to do whatever we can for them. We're going to look after all the people all the time. And if there's pressure on Tom McMillan, there's going to be equally, if not more, pressure.
Okay, that is provincial, yes. Let's talk about the tight races. Where do you think, Eugene, is the tightest race this election?
Well, I don't really see any tight races. I mean, when you look at the statistics, you look at the figures, the electoral redistribution hasn't really changed all that much. There's an excellent candidate in first in Egmont there. I think Prowse Chapley wins the nomination. Very tough. Gordon Lank and Catherine Callback, that will be a most interesting race. Tom McMillan in Hillsborough, Pat Binns. I don't see really anything really close, given the position of the Tory party now.
Ron Kelly?
Well, I think given the fact that Malpeque is the only riding that has 3 candidates at this present time, I think you'd normally expect that it would be a close race. And all the people out there that I know of the other parties, and certainly Judy Whittaker for our party, are very articulate, intelligent, and very assertive people, and it should be a very interesting race. I normally would say Hillsborough, but of course the Liberals don't have a candidate there yet, so who knows where they are.
Which riding do the Liberals consider the toughest?
Well, the situation in Egmont is a bit of a wild card yet, because we're not certain of who the candidates are going to be there yet for the 3 parties. But in Cardigan and Malpeque both, the Liberals have had their candidate nominated for some period of time now. And I think that Lawrence Macaulay is going to give Pat Binns a very close run for his money, and Catherine Callback, I believe, is going to rout Gordon Lank. I don't agree with Ron that that one's going to be close. I think that that one will be a runaway for Catherine. The situation in Cardigan will be a close race. Egmont, it's too soon to tell. And tomorrow night we'll find out who'll be taking on Tom McMillan, and I think that will have some influence, because in PEI I see riding by riding, candidate by candidate elections taking place, and that's going to be repeated right across the country, but in particular here on the island.
Okay, thank you all three for coming in, Ron Kelly, Eugene Rossiter, and David Hooley. We'll be back to do this again next week, and we'll be back with more of Compass right after this. Stay with us.
People say print is passé. It just ain't so. Take a look at this. It's got everything. There's... Or maybe if you're a little hungry, there's always... Oh, solo mio. What if your sink backs up? Or maybe your car needs a tune-up? You need a vacation? I do. Island Tell Yellow Pages. Everything you want in a book.
In regional news this Monday, Nova Scotia's Task Force on AIDS has presented its report to the government. Andra Stevens reports.
The task force started its work almost a year ago. In the wake of a public outcry in Shelburne County about schoolteacher Eric Smith, the government wanted advice on how to deal with people with AIDS, how to go about its attack on the disease. A 21-person task force took submissions. It heard from people across the province in public meetings. Some of what it heard was ugly.
Eric Smith said tonight if he could be given a reason why he should not go to the classroom, why he would not go out, I can give two reasons. One, he is a homosexual, and two, he has AIDS. And I think that's sufficient.
They should be isolated until proper attention is given.
Today, the task force came back with 47 recommendations on everything from public education to services for people with AIDS. The report calls for mandatory AIDS education in the schools from grade 7 up, and perhaps in response to what happened to Eric Smith, his positive AIDS test was leaked by someone in his doctor's office. The report recommends that the government put in law punishment for people who leak personal health information. But the task force is at odds with the government on the question of how to deal with people believed to be willfully infecting others with the disease. In the Scott Wenzel case, the government chose a criminal charge. The task force says public health legislation is a better way. It asks that isolation and quarantine rules in the Health Act be amended to reflect modern ideas on fairness and legal rights. The government accepted that recommendation and 39 others, but when the task force tried to get anonymous testing, the government said no. The recommendation was vague. It wanted the government to set up an alternate system where people who tested positive for the virus could be guaranteed that their names would not be given to the government.
The blood that is submitted for testing does not have a name on it, and only the family doctor knows whose blood it is, and we feel that that type of confidentiality is there, and therefore 19B is not needed.
The task force also recommended protection under the Nova Scotia Human Rights Code for carriers of the disease, people who associate with them, and those in high-risk groups. The government said no to that too. And on the controversial issue of putting sexual orientation in the Human Rights Code, the government said no again.
Well, I think they're doing their best to accept the things that are easy for them, and we'll continue to struggle, I hope.
I mean, one is to recognize that the community most affected by this disease has been hiding away for a very long while. And we now have a system in place that's going to keep them hiding away.
All along, the government said it didn't want to act without consensus. The task force was supposed to go out, get opinion and information, and advise the government on how to handle the disease. Now it appears that some of that advice is much too controversial for this government to handle. Andra Stevens, CBC News, Halifax.
New Brunswick's Fisheries Minister Doug Young is resigning his post to run federally. The announcement came today, but it's been expected for a long time. Young is the first MLA to leave since the Liberals swept all 58 seats in the last election, and his departure will give the Conservatives at least a chance of getting a seat in the legislature. In Newfoundland, the man accused of being a Soviet spy says he's not guilty. 25-year-old Stephen Joseph Ratke entered the plea this morning in St. John's. Marilyn Boone reports.
Stephen Joseph Ratke wore handcuffs as he was led into court by plainclothes security officers. It was Ratke's fourth time in court since his arrest in June. And today, the accused spy heard that his case will go to trial early next year. Inside the courtroom, Ratke stood motionless, arms at his side, as the charges were read against him. 4 counts of breaching Canada's Official Secrets Act by unlawfully obtaining documents or information that were or might be useful to a foreign power, namely the Soviet Union. The Crown says Ratke's purpose was prejudicial to the interests or safety of Canada and the United States. To each of the charges, Ratke answered not guilty. He's requested a trial by jury, and Supreme Court Judge Alec Hickman set February 6th as the date for that trial to begin. Crown Prosecutor Gordon McNabb asked that at least a month be set aside to hear all the evidence in the case. The evidence against Ratke was gathered in a 2-year investigation that centered on this U.S. naval base at Argentia. The base commander there has talked about a so-called sting operation in which harmless military documents were given to a suspected spy. Ratke, meanwhile, is still in police custody. He'll spend the next few months in prison while the lawyers prepare their arguments. Investigators from Canada and the U.S. will testify at the Ratke trial. Some of the testimony will be heard behind closed doors to protect national security. But RCMP say most of the trial will be open to the public, so the case will provide an interesting look at the anti-espionage forces of 2 countries. Marilyn Boone, CBC News, St. John's.
That's the regional news. Scott, what's up in sports tonight?
Well, a day after the end of the regular season in Major League Baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies made a couple of changes. They hired Nick Leyva, former St. Louis Cardinals coach, as their new manager, and they sent veteran catcher Lance Parrish to the California Angels for a minor leaguer. In football, the NFL Week 5 comes to an end tonight as the Dallas Cowboys play the New Orleans Saints.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Kevin, not a bad forecast.
Not bad normally, and a beautiful sunset out here outside the studios here in Charlottetown as we're expecting partial clearing overnight. A few clouds about, temperature down to 7. Tomorrow starting off with sun, cloud by afternoon, chance of showers by evening getting up to 14.
Okay, thanks very much, Kevin, and thank you for being with us. We'll be back again tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Join us then. Good night.